Welcome to the 15-ish minute coffee chat live stream and podcast with Anna and Selena. 13 seasons of helping entrepreneurs and small business owners build more profitable businesses.
All right, guys. Does failure keep you from moving forward as a small business owner? Whether a solopreneur or the head of a team, you are the leader of your company. Failure is a word that no leader wants to confront, but it's a natural and normal part of running a business. Guest Jessica Wright, life and career development coach for leaders, shares how to reframe failure, taking it from a negative experience that stagnates growth to a learning opportunity to boost our motivation and grow our business. We had like the best convo with her a moment ago because we were just talking about something she did. Well, we're going to save that for when she comes up. So, Anna, I feel like you handle failure so well, like that nobody realizes there are failing things that happen to you.
Oh, yeah. Lots of failures. Lots and lots. I think the thing is that sometimes when that failure it's when it gets to be embarrassing or you want to hide it, that's when you kind of have to like stop and take a moment and sit back and think about what is truly going on here. Why am I afraid to share this? And if you remember a previous guest we had, Michael Clemmer, talked about how transparent he is. He's like, if it's a bad day and something went all wrong, I'm going to throw it on social media and be that transparent, because if I don't share those failures, people don't understand my successes. And I just thought that was so poignant, right? Like, nobody.
I know, totally. And I think I liked that honesty, right? And I think sometimes when you are honest in that way, I feel like it can help you also be a better leader, because you're not fighting against this like this unrealistic sometimes point of who you think you need to be for your company or forward facing to clients, right?
Yeah.
Because we struggle so hard being like, no, I'm this. We'll save all the juicy stuff.
Yeah.
But Anna,
I will say, I'm going to ask the call to action. Okay.
Yes, do it.
We're both wanting the same thing at the same time. So
we're so excited
for you guys is, does professional failures keep you from moving forward? And I think this is a good question. Like, really stop and think about it, because people go like, no, I just keep going. But really, if something, does it make you pause and give you that fear factor element? Because I think it does more frequently than people are willing to admit. Eventually we get over it. But anyway, I'm excited to have our guest today. Give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Do you feel like professional failure keeps you from moving forward? But Jessica's going to address all this. And so we should totally have Jessica come up and talk about it.
Let's read her bio here.
Okay, so Jessica Wright is a life and career development coach for leaders. I love that title, by the way. In addition to having a master's degree in transformational leadership, Jessica is the founder and coach of Wright Life Coaching, which helps new to mid-career leaders accomplish all of the good work you want to do. Feel like you have a co-leader you can work out challenges with, and build a strong and effective team without sacrificing your personal life through one-on-one coaching customized to help. Okay, I'm going to re-say that part right there because it is not coming out smoothly for me. I apologize. So build strong and effective teams without sacrificing your personal life through one-on-one coaching customized to your goals and needs. You can also find Jessica speaking at events or behind her own mic as she hosts 2 of her own podcasts, Illustrating Leadership and a new exclusive podcast called Leadership Masterclass. Ooh, we're going to hear some more about that too, I hope. When Jessica isn't soaking up all of the Pacific Northwest has to offer, that's my hometown. You can find her chasing her I always say the name of this kind of dog wrong.
Yeah, so Dodson.
Thank you, Hershey, around the garden, or baking vegan cupcakes. She is a military spouse and loves connecting with people in any way she can.
Anna Larson. I think we're really excited to have Jessica today. And so Anna's reading faster than her mouth and eyes are allowing her to say. So that just is what happens. We recognize it, and it's okay.
Can
right?
can we just say that this was one of those things where this was a failure on my part. I just kept going. I just kept reading.
You did good. Yes.
I stumbled, I fell, I paused, I had to redo it, and I did it all on air.
You guys, and that was not scripted. That is legit actually happening in real time. So I cannot wait. Let's bring Jessica up so she can respond to that.
Okay. Hi, Jessica.
Hi.
I want to first apologize for butchering your bio like I did.
There is no need to apologize. I think we turned it into a lesson, a leadership moment.
Yeah.
I was cackling the whole time. So yeah, that's the thing. Anyone afraid to go on a podcast or start your own podcast because you're not sure if you'll be able to get your words out, it literally doesn't matter.
Yeah.
My bio was still communicated effectively. It's fine.
Well, the good news is that we will give you ample opportunities to read it on your own without me stumbling through it.
Maybe I can't. I don't know. Who says I can do it better?
Well, okay, Jessica, thank you for saying yes to coming on the show. I always get nervous when I'm like, hey, you want to come on ours? And I don't know. I'm fearful of the rejection, but I'm so glad you said yes. I had the privilege of being on Jessica's podcast and we talked about leadership. And I just knew when she was like, hey, anybody needing guests? I'm like, yes, because I loved our conversation so much. And I was telling Jessica, the conversation led me to reconnect with some of my past leaders, just to talk about certain things. And I just loved it. And I know you have valuable things that we can chat about. And I don't know, you're just there is this calm energy about you that I love so much that made me feel like such a welcomed guest. And I felt safe to share the things that we talked about on your podcast. So
that makes me so happy.
Yeah, no. So I'm super glad he said yes. So what we always like to do before we start throwing all the questions at you, we like to do a little coffee cup selfie. Mm-hmm. I like to joke that I have an imaginary cameraman. So on 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I love that.
Do you see my coffee cup? Where it's from?
Yeah.
Oh, Oregon. Lovely.
For me. I saw it Pacific Northwest and went, that's my home.
Yeah, I'm up in the Seattle area, but we go down to Oregon a lot. So many beautiful spots down there.
Yeah. My cousin is Beavers. She went there. And then my other cousin went to the other is a Ducks. So yeah. I had a grandma that had to sew two shirts and put them together so she could support her grandkids. It was hysterical. Anyway, let's get started because I know we have some questions, but how we frame the questions is going to be kind of cool. Okay, let's go like this.
We really only have one major question, but it's a 3-part, right? So because we are talking about leadership today and we were talking about reframing failures, and you had in your intake forum, you had given us all of this great stuff. And I was like, all of these kind of work to one single question, which is, what are 3 tips that you would give to someone in a leadership position about reframing failure? What would be 3 things you would say to them to help them change that mindset, get unstuck, move forward, and be the amazing person that they truly are?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me get that coffee in me before I start with this one. Yep. Crack. Okay. Yeah, well, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm just going to give a 4th that's kind of a general understanding before going into the 3, because I love rules, and I also love breaking rules. But the first is just this general understanding that failure is not a bad thing. People, and to go a little further with that, people can do bad things, but people are not inherently bad, and I think sometimes when we think about failure, we're like, I have done this bad thing. I am bad. I am a bad leader. I can't do anything. We start to spiral. And so I just want to start off with this general understanding that failure is not bad because you are not bad. you may have done something that wasn't the right move, or, it could have been or the best choice you could make with the information you had at that time, or maybe you just made the wrong choice. There's so many different ways that we can arrive at a quote unquote failure, but I just want to start off with, you're not bad, failure's not bad. Okay.
That's really, so it's very, I love that beginning, because I never really thought about it in terms of personifying that failure as who you are, not just something that's happened to you. But I bet you see that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why we get so afraid of failure and feel so bad afterwards, because we don't make it about the specific failure. We make it about us.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can kind of separate ourselves from the failure itself. Now, I'll talk a little bit later. There's ways you still want to be aware of and involved in figuring out how you played into what happened. Mm-hmm. So I'm not talking about that. But if we can start to separate us being bad from the bad thing that happened a little bit, don't make it about yourself, basically.
Jessica, I needed that advice when I was a brand new manager, just managing a big team for the first time. I wish somebody had told me that,
Good.
That would have changed a lot of things that I did early on. Anyway, continue on.
Yeah. Okay. So with that understanding, the first thing I would say is, and you started to speak to this when you talked about your previous guest, Michael, failure is not to be hidden, or I would encourage people to not hide it. There's a strong power in transparency. Now, I always have a little side note. You want to protect the vulnerable people in the situation, right? And you may not need to tell every detail about every person that was involved. That might not be appropriate, but there's always ways to frame things where you can be more and more transparent. I mean, think about, and this is part of why I do what I do with my podcast, Illustrating Leadership. Think about the person or people who have been most influential in your life as leaders. Did they seem perfect all the time? My guess is probably no. You saw them struggle at times, and you admired the way that they came through that struggle. And you were able to do that because they had a level of transparency about what was going on. Again, we filter what is appropriate to share and what is not appropriate to share, but you can probably share a lot more when you think you can. And so that transparency is so key. So I'm glad you brought up your guest, Michael.
I feel like, so you know how there's like that push for authenticity. And when I hear that word, this is what I feel like what you're saying is what I feel like that word means. It's like sharing both the good and the bad parts of ourselves, because we know that there are things that happen to all of us. I mean, I don't know a single person who lives the charmed life where nothing ever goes wrong, right? Like whether it's even just stubbing your toe on the side of the bed, or, whatever, or the kitchen, kicking the kitchen table wrong, or
you're right,
dropping your ice cream cone, right? They don't have to be massive, humongous things.
Right.
But I could see how, like, that transparency, when you share, there's also a power in being able to say, I'm going to do better next time. Right?
Yes.
Like
here's what happened and here's what I learned.
Yeah.
And I think for leaders, that's massive.
Mm-hmm. I can tell you, because I started in management in the 90s. A lot of it was you never spoke about failure. So that's kind of like the management life I grew up in, where you hid anything that you failed on and you had to just tough it out. You ignored it to the team in that sense, right? And you just moved on to the next thing. And not that we failed a lot, but just we were very scared of failure. All the things. So I think I'm trying to think what my young beginning self would have heard if we said transparency. What do you mean? Like, we don't discuss this. We don't discuss that. We don't discuss this or that or that. You know what I mean? Only the good things. It's not always magical every time. And I just think the pressure would have been so much better on management. You know what I mean? Had this transparency button been available to us back then, I think our lives would have worked a lot easier.
For sure. And such better mental health situations at work too, right?
100%.
I think each generation is getting better and better. I identify as an elder millennial, but it's getting even better for those younger than me. And, you know, they say about our generations that we have, I'll PG this, a BS meter. You know, we have a stronger BS meter, and I don't know if that's true or not, but I think we're more willing to call it out. And so I think that that's going to be more and more of a thing. If you want someone to feel connected to you, you got to be honest. Appropriate, but honest.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you know what else this does too is when your employees or those who you manage see that you're willing to admit to like having done something incorrectly, they're more willing to say, hey, this went wrong, I need help, right? And so if you're the type of manager that really is truly looking for good team dynamics, a good company culture, strong teamwork, that kind of thing, you need people to feel comfortable saying, I need help. I didn't do this right, or I don't know how to do this, right? And being willing to say those things. And that will only happen if they see you as a leader. I feel like being willing to say those kinds of things to them.
Yeah. Okay. I have a question, and it's so not on top. Well, it's on topic, but and we talked about these generations, right? So slowly and surely, this generation that didn't believe in transparency is aging out of the workforce, and we're slowly, millennials are going to be the primary older bosses, right? At some point. And so do you feel like, you know, when a let's say my daughter comes in and works for a boomer that still might be, you know, and holding on, there's that clash of leadership sometimes. Do you like, what do you say to somebody like my daughter's age on how to actually work with somebody that is a leader in another generation that believes a different way?
Yeah, you're 100% right. And I think that that's what I see a lot happening when I work with my clients. They're the Gen X, Millennial, Gen Z era, and they're ready for a next level up in leadership, whatever that looks like. That can look a lot of different ways, right?
Yeah.
But there's people just hanging on, right, a little bit, which is fine. There's a lot of wisdom in that generation. No knocks on the boomers.
Right.
But I think what I would say to someone in that situation, like your daughter or, you know, someone my age going in, is to, while you will feel frustrated, to find a strategy that models to them the way you want to be led. And that automatically makes you a leader in that situation. So to that manager who is leading in the old style, modeling to them communication, good communication skills, transparency, honesty, coming very prepared with, here's what I think the challenge is, and I think this is what I need in order to be able to work through it, all of a sudden puts them in the place of like, oh, okay, they're actually kind of a problem solver. That's great. We're not complaining. We're looking for solutions. Because I think that's the bad rap that younger generations get sometimes. They're just not willing to do the hard work, and they're just complaining all the time and blah, 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 blah. And that's not true. But, you know, maybe sometimes the way we come into those sorts of challenges might give off that impression. So come in with a very deep self-awareness and understanding of how this is going wrong for you, and openness even that the other person might see a different challenge, and then some clearly articulated needs for what would help you operate better in this situation. And I think that's just a more open and collaborative way to kind of start actually making some change, instead of you're not doing this, you're not doing that. That's like never going to be a good
Yeah.
thing.
Or I'm going to quit because they can't understand me.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really kind of where that goes. There's almost like a lack of motivation because they're like, oh, they'll never understand who I am. They're too old.
And they won't. Yeah.
Mhm.
And they won't ever understand you if you don't articulate what your challenges and needs are.
Yeah.
They won't.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I know.
I do. Yeah, I like that. I'm almost actually seeing it in play between myself and my daughter. I'm like, oh, I mean, so okay. I love that. Thank you for answering that sub question for us. So let's move on to the next tip you have for the gang.
I think failure is an opportunity to reflect on what your responsibility was in this whole situation, and take ownership. So I'm not saying that this is a reason for you to obsess and spiral, that it is your fault. This is not a time to get defensive. It's a time to instead ask questions of yourself of like, what actually happened? Because we all have our story, right? But list down some facts and not emotion-filled facts. There's time for that later. Like, I'm not saying emotions aren't important either, but just list down the facts of what happened, what you did in each of those scenarios, or in each of those facts to make them facts, and where was your opportunity to show up and course correct, and you didn't. So here's the part where we, in the being more transparent part, open up about what we could have done differently with the information we had. If you didn't have any other information to lead you in a different way, don't beat yourself up about that. That's not, that's an opportunity then for the larger system to work better, to get you the information you need. Which is another component of this as well. Where did you have the opportunity to show up differently and course correct? And where is the system failing? And whether that's your fault or not, I don't want to use that phrase. Whether it's your place or not to do that, to fix that, what are there holes in the system?
I love that you said that, because Anna and I together have looked at something that may have gone wrong, and we've, and to be fair, right, emotion always just automatically jumps in to protect ourselves. But Anna and I have always been able to zoom out, either by her telling me or me telling her. And we have to remember to strip the emotion out so we can really review, so it doesn't happen again, or like you said, so we can course correct for the next time. And I just love that you said that, because I'm like, okay, I mean, I knew we were doing something right. So, but it is so important. But I do realize not everybody has an Anna or a Selena to bounce off of. But I've tried to take that same practice, or I'll just go to Anna anyway and be like, I have this problem and I need to not be so upset, or I need to not be, so yeah.
In my younger years, I was employed by a company that transferred a project to me that I was now in charge of, and I didn't do due diligence in going back through and making sure everything had been done. I just assumed it had been properly vetted and done, and spent hundreds of hours working on this. We had press lined up for the completion. I mean, it was a massive thing. And on the final site visit, I just was confirming the initial intake questions and discovered that one of the answers was no, which negated and eliminated them as being able to participate in this program we had just spent hundreds of hours on and so much money toward. And it was like my stomach dropped out, right? Because immediately it was, this is my fault. Like, how did I not know this from the start? And what I'm saying here is I appreciate what you're saying, because I could have easily spiraled. They could have fired me for this, right? Like, this would have been like a firing offense kind of thing. But there was this recognition of, the handover didn't happen appropriately. The first person who had the project did not do their job well. I mean, there was these series of unfortunate events, if you want to call them that led to this final thing. But it was such a huge learning opportunity to me to stop and say, all right, here's all the things, like there was a part I played in this process. And to accept that responsibility, I think, was one of the reasons why I did not get let go, right? Yeah. Because I was able to say, I can see where I should have done this. Yeah. And I came with solutions on the other end. And I think that's a part that you're referring to as well. I said, I should have done this. And in the future, this will be my process, right? But you can only do that if you do your tip number 2, which is reflect on your part. Yeah. How much ownership can you take for this? And what are you going to do better next time around? I love this tip, because this is the scary part. Yeah. This is the scary part where you have to admit to wrongdoing or failure, that the failure is partly your responsibility. You have to own up to it, and that nobody wants to do that.
No,
right?
This is the part you're most sick and nauseous.
Yes.
Like, really, this is because you have to make a big choice of fight or flight, really, right? Or put your head in the sand.
I'm glad you used that term, because that's literally what happens in that moment. You said your stomach dropped. Your brain and nervous system is in fight or flight at that moment.
Yeah, I wanted to run.
Yeah. And like, so my reaction in those times, I'm the head in the sand kind of person. That's my flight, I guess. Like, I just want to get as small and hide as much as possible. And while I'm down there in the sand, like, think of why this wasn't my fault. Like, protect. And some people are like outwardly defensive, like blame, whatever. So yeah. And I bet that kind of attention to detail has never been much of an issue for you since.
I know, absolutely not. And I think one of the biggest learning moments was I'm standing there with this client. And it was at that moment that both of us realized, because they had spent money and time and manpower on this the same way we had, right? And both of us realized that they didn't qualify for what they were trying to qualify for. And to have that happen literally in the last hour of where we were going to make this huge announcement and the press were waiting and all of that was just... I mean, it really was. I wanted to be the size of the tiniest thing in the room and just kind of buzz away and be like,
Anna, I legit want to get out of frame because I feel so sick for the younger you, right?
Sweat. Yeah, right? I'm there with you. I'm like sweating because of it.
Yeah. When you said you're sitting next to the client, I just literally, my anxiety level rose.
Yeah. And I was the only one there. I'm the representative. So I had to have the right words. I had to know what to say. And it really was probably one of the most instrumental point of failure learning moments I've ever had in my career. But you're right, Jessica, that attention to detail is not something that I skip out on. Like, I am checking, dotting I's and crossing T's and making sure that, that kind of thing would never, ever happen again, ever.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, like, you learned and you also survived, because that fight or flight, cave person thing going on in our brain that's like, oh my God, get me out of here, please, right now. That system is doing that because we are like pretty sure we're going to die. Yes. Are we in those kinds of situations? No, probably not. But that's what the system is telling us. And so developing those skills with my clients of like, this kind of starts to lead into my last tip, but failure is a given. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And having the strategies ready to go in those situations for taking a beat, not running, also not fighting, not hiding. How can you give yourself some space to properly process? And, you know, it's not something to be super ashamed of, because it's going to happen to all of us. And if we're taking those opportunities to learn and grow and be transparent and, you know, come out stronger on the other side of it and help our people learn how to do the same for the sake of that workplace culture that we were talking about earlier, it's going to happen and it's going to be fine. You're not going to die. And
yes.
Yeah. So like also something you were talking about on the last point, Selena, I wanted to say, like, I always say that emotions are important and they are part of the story, but they're not the whole story. They are signposts. And so in those moments where the gut drops, you're like, oh no, this has definitely happened. I played some role in this. Instead of going to what is going to happen to me, just noticing all the things coming up for you and figuring out kind of what that's pointing to, and then figuring out your response based on that and how you can be most supportive to the larger good in the situation instead of trying to protect yourself.
Yeah.
That's where the good is going to come through. I'm not saying go out and look for mistakes to make. That's not the point of failure is going to happen, but it's going to happen. So
I just want to say thank you for, you just reminded me of something that I always kind of like, I was taught back in my corporate days, right? We have crisis plans for just in case. You make them and create them when you're calm, because then you can reasonably say, this is what will happen, because you are so correct. Like emotion plays a part when you've come to that failure moment sometimes, right? Maybe the failure is this guy's credit card, or our credit card machine is down and now we can't make any dollars. Okay, what's our plan? What are we going to do to solve it? But you just reminded me that this tip right here is, it's going to happen. How do you plan for some of them that are foreseeable to happen, right?
Yeah.
And so thank you for reminding me, because I think this actually is an important one, is you can help control and you can create an output to when a failure is going to happen in your time, because you're right, it is going to happen.
Mm-hmm. You know, another big piece to this too is when you are the owner of a company or small business owner or the manager leading a team of people, you have to be ready for their reactions to the failure also. I mean, they can come at you angry, combative, you know, wanting to yell in your face, or they might start crying and then you don't know what to do, right? Like, I mean, there could be any range of emotions happening from other people. And so I feel like as a leader, we talk a lot about like what you were just saying, Selena, like preempting those moments, because otherwise in that time frame, if you're not ready and prepared to handle what's facing you, like you just want to crumple into tears right along with them, you know?
Yeah.
Let's cry together, you know? Okay. And that, I mean, as a leader, you can't really do that. When you're in that leadership position, you have to be seen as the strong one that's ready to not like, I know the way forward. Here we go.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not opposed to a tear from a leader.
Yeah.
But yeah, if tears are coming, but that person is acknowledging the situation and acknowledging how I feel and is starting to make a plan of how to move forward, I'm there. Let's all cry together and move forward. But yeah, that's the scary part of all of this, right? It's not necessarily like when I think about the times I mess up, I can, if it's a pretty singular, you know, just me kind of failure, I can be like, all right, well, whatever, that didn't work. I'm going to do something else. But when I start to get other people involved, my failure, we can sometimes feel like we failed them as well. We didn't just fail on the idea or the process or whatever we were trying to implement. We failed people too. And that's when it gets really scary, because we can only control ourselves, right? I know we'd love to think we can control others, but we can't. Sorry.
Darn.
I know, bummer. But we can't control someone else. So they could be mad at us. They could think negatively about us. They could seem fine in the moment and then later try to take you down. Like so many different things could happen, right? And that's what we start to freak out about. And the reality is, I think going back to the more like transparent you are about what you see happening, how you're feeling about it, but what you want to happen next, people are then going to be able to see you modeling that and be like, okay, this is not the time for me to be thinking about this person necessarily, but we all need to come together to figure out what's the best thing to do for the good of the situation,
Yeah. And I feel like a good leader is able to do that well, right? Because people are willing to rally. If you're a crap leader, they're jumping ship, right? They don't care.
Totally.
They don't care if you get in trouble. They're not, as long as they're not being held responsible, they're out,
Yeah.
So I guess if you, if something bad happens and everybody jumps ship, might be time to go talk to Jessica, right?
Yeah, you need to reflect. That's one of the tips that Jessica talked about is reflect. But it is sad, and I know it is. I think it's very. It's obvious that there's going to be bad leaders along with the good leaders, and hopefully you can either be your own leader, so you don't ever have to work for a bad leader, or you gotta, like Anna said, jump ship and find a company that has a great leader that fosters the kind of a workplace culture you want to be a part of, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about this on our last show, but I was like, I joke like how the new generations are they're very direct and they communicate what they want and need. And I think it's just, I'm jealous that I'm like, no, they should ask for these things because that is normal. And I'm happy that they are at a place where they can ask. I'm always like, oh, you ask that? You ask if they'll give you water? What? Like, you know what I mean? Okay, guys, I was always given water, so don't think I wasn't. But it's just an example.
I know. I'm like, do I need to call someone? Are you okay?
I don't know. I'm not okay, Jessica. But
honestly, we did grow up in a time frame where workplace wellness was not a consideration.
No,
mental
wellness was certainly not even. Yeah, because back in those days, if you couldn't handle it, you were soft or you're not cut out for this job, and but man, this has been a great conversation because I think. Mm-hmm. I think it is very important. And this is why when we saw like of the 4 things that Jessica loves to chat about, this one, me and Anna were like, we should talk about failure because it is something that is going to happen. And I think it is important to just create a conversation about it. Right. And I'm just going to say this. I'm going to ask people here, if you've made it this far, I want to know, what was your biggest failure and how did you handle it? Like, can you just put it in the comments or post it on Instagram and make sure you tag Jessica, me, and Anna? Like, I'm just kind of curious, like do a reel, do a video, talk about it, get it out of there.
Use Jessica's 3 tips, right?
Yes.
Like look at it as something not to be hidden and to be transparent about. Reflect on what your responsibility portion of that was. And then, now that it happened, now what? Right? Like moving forward, what's your new take?
Well, we just made social media content for you. Right? Look at all you're getting from this.
Yes.
I love this.
Yes, I do.
And you don't have to share like it does not have to be like you're airing the dirty laundry or whatever, but it would be really interesting to hear what people have to say, like in terms of
and it can be cathartic for you, can't it? Like just and letting go of that can maybe help you like move towards something that you've been wanting to do or work on now that this is kind of off your shoulders,
Yes.
Okay, so I could sit here and talk about this all day, but
me too.
Jessica. Okay, you guys, every time we always ask our guests what's a toolkit that they have. And I'm really excited because Jessica is working on something. And by the time this airs, you're going to have first dibs at it. So Jessica, tell everybody what you are creating and what it's about and all the things.
Yeah, I've got a few things going on right now. It's a big summer for me, big working summer for me. Um, so number one here on the screen, I'm coming out with a free quiz. What is your leadership blind spot? We all have probably, well, don't we all love quizzes? Like we grew up taking them in magazines, right? And now they're just like on our phones and it's so fun. So I'm really excited about this quiz. We've probably also taken a lot of like, what's your leadership style, or what superhero are you, and what does that say about your leadership? Which those are great. Listen, I've taken them too. Okay. But I'm really excited about this one because that blind spot, you don't know what you don't know. Right. And so I'm really excited to dig into this with people. So yeah, just like a 7 or 8 question quiz, and you'll get your blind spot, and we can chat about that then, what that means for you and areas to think about incorporating into your personal development and how that'll help your leadership. Or I also just want to touch on that word leader. I think this is why I started my podcast, Illustrating Leadership. I think so many more of us fall into the category of leader than maybe what your job title suggests. But the role you play in not just your work, but any community you're a part of, your family, makes you a leader. So I love talking about leadership because it catches a lot more of us than we realize. So anyways, I'm excited for people to go take the quiz. Yay! This is a great deadline for me to get it done by, and I'm excited.
I think it's actually a great like kind of quiz based off of even today's topic, right? Of failure, or looking at, because what if it's a failure that continues happening? That is a blind spot. So I love that you created something that's like opposite of the superhero qualities, or the, you know what I mean? Like you're like the best cereal, or you're the best Disney princess. I love this. It's almost like the villain quiz, right? But it's just saying.
Yeah. And right? I love talking about strengths, like people's strengths. And this is just sort of like the opposite side of it. But just know that when you get your results, I'm not going to be telling you what's bad about you. Because remember my first point of like, basic understanding of how I operate in life is no person is bad. They may have made bad choices or done bad things, but they are not bad. So I'm not going to tell you what's bad about you.
Okay, wait. No, I'll say the choices are villainous. How about that? You're not the villain. So, all right, Jessica, tell everybody that's listening or watching, where is your favorite place to hang out? Where do they go find you?
Yeah, so you can find out everything that's going on. There's a new podcast coming out that'll be out by the time this happens. I'm looking for a couple people to help me beta test a new program that's going to come out later in the fall. So if you're interested in doing some leadership coaching with me, I have 2 spots open that are free for you, Selena and Anna's community. So just connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram. LinkedIn's the main platform where I hang out. Instagram, I still love Instagram. That's where I spend a lot of my time. So while I'm posting a lot on LinkedIn, I'm in stories on Instagram. And check out my website, jessicawright.online. You'll find the quiz there once it's ready to go, as well as everything else about what I offer.
I love it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is so great.
Selena's crying because
I am crying.
I was like, that is not the music, is it? But it is the music. That's the music that tells us that we are winding down the show, that we want you to come be our inbox besties and connect with Anna and Selena, and that you can find us at annaandselena.com, and Jessica's blog will be up and ready to go when this airs, so you can get all the links to all the things from that blog. Also, if you are a podcast person, catch us on your favorite podcast platform. We're all over the place. So we love to connect with us. We look forward to having you be part of our community. And other than that, we'll see you at the next 15-ish minutes coffee chat.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.